honored veteran join me on stage. Our first honored guest for this year's Veterans Day program is Clyde Trotter. Clyde was born the second of 4 boys and grew up right here on the family farm outside of Fisher. After graduating high school, he began attending trade school at Greer Shop Training to become an auto mechanic. Because there weren't any jobs after completing the program, Clyde came back home to help out on the family farm. Shortly after beginning his 55-year marriage to his high school sweetheart, Karen Spurlin, Clyde thought he was going to get drafted. He decided to enlist before this happened, joining the ranks of the Army Reserves. For basic training, Clyde was sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. In those first moments, he remembers hopping off the bus with drill sergeants immediately yelling and screaming. The idea was that they were in charge, and it was your job to do as you were told. During a training exercise, he recalls carrying his boots out to the rifle range to practice because it was too muddy to walk in there. After 6 months of basic training, Clyde was sent to Fort Ord, California, near San Francisco, for truck driving school. This assignment happened to work out perfectly for Clyde. His in-laws had a winter home in California, so his wife Karen stayed nearby. Clyde learned how to drive a deuce and a half. This is a 2.5-ton truck that can be driven on both land and water. As part of his training, Clyde worked as part of a mortar platoon, which focused on firing mortars, relocating, and then firing from a different location. Serving during the Vietnam and Korean Wars, Clyde's superior officers made sure his unit was always at the ready. During his 5.5 years of service in the Army Reserve, Clyde would report to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin for duty. He eventually transitioned to a headquarters company. In his final time in the service, he was charged with driving the chow truck. When I was having my wife proofreading this last night, she said, "What's a chow truck?" I said, "That's the food truck, honey." So Clyde was in charge of driving the food truck, a very important job. Clyde shared a story about his survival kit, which consisted of a payday candy bar box. Wonder what was in the box? Paydays. When all the other soldiers were emptying their survival kits to share, Clyde hung on to his. To this day, he still has the original box, which can be found on a table in our entryway. Be sure to check it out once we're done. And don't worry, it is no longer filled with those paydays. Clyde's motivation to serve was a family affair. He admired his older brother Harlan, who had served in the Navy. Eventually, all of the Trotter boys would serve in the military, with his younger 2 brothers, Glenn and Robert, both joining the Army. Joining the Army Reserves gave Clyde valuable life experience and taught him independence that he used throughout his life. It makes him proud to know that he and his siblings all serve their country. When he sees a man or woman in uniform, Clyde always thanks them for their service. He loves to connect with other veterans when he sees them in the community. What Clyde wanted to share with the other veterans in the room today is how thankful he is for their camaraderie and trust. He shared how special the trust is that's developed through all the time spent training, learning, and being around one another. Clyde is such a great example of so many veterans in our community who decided to begin their adult life by serving our country. At a time when he could have waited to be drafted, Clyde opted to run towards serving his country rather than sitting idly by while the decision was made for him. I'm so thankful for Clyde and so many of our service members who said, "Send me." Help me show our appreciation for Specialist First Class Clyde Trotter, Army Reserve. At this time,